Hi, my name is Ashley Dees, and I'm a research and instruction librarian at the University of Mississippi Libraries. Today, I'm here to talk to you all about assessment during a pandemic, using ACRL's project outcome to assess instruction and plan for the future. So let's get started. First, I want to give you all a quick overview of the project. This project was part of the UM Library's long-term assessment plan. And what the plan was to take 6 Speech 102 classes and perform an immediate survey after library instruction, and then 6 weeks later, a follow-up survey. Both surveys were initially going to be given in print, and print surveys can then be put into ACRL's project outcome, or you can do a link in an online survey and distribute it out that way. And we'll talk more about that in just a second. But first, I want to tell you a little bit about the speech classes. So Speech 102 is Fundamentals of Public Speaking, and the Speech 102 classes are part of UM Library's overall first year instruction program. We teach a lot of first year instruction classes, library sessions for those classes, and so we tend to pick a section of or a course for each year to assess to see how we're doing, what we can change, what we can do better, and just overall get student feedback on the information that we were providing for them. So the initial survey, as I said, was supposed to be paper immediate after the instruction and then paper 6 weeks later. That changed. I had 6 Speech 102 classes initially, and some of that changed a little bit as well. So due to the pandemic, the follow-up study was actually only administered to 2 of the 6 classes, and it was administered through an online link to the survey and not in paper as I had initially planned to do. The remaining 4 classes were unable to participate in the second part of the study because the professor contracted COVID-19. And we'll talk a little more in depth about all of that in a minute. So first of all, I want to talk to you all about Project Outcome. It's a free product for academic libraries through ACRL. There is a public library version, so you public library folks, you have these options too. I can't really tell you what those look like because I haven't used the public library version, but the academic library version allows you to create an account, connect to your library, and then multiple people can have accounts and connect to your library and do different types of surveys. I did instruction surveys, and I used the pre-canned surveys that were already there in Project Outcome. So all I had to do really is distribute the survey and then put in the information. And if you use the online version, then it will automatically be put in to the data set and you won't have to enter it manually. So here on this screen, you can see the survey source. You can create a new survey. You can use a template. You can put in your own questions. And then you have the survey topic. So clearly instruction here is highlighted because that's the one I used. And then they show you the immediate and the follow-up. But there are other surveys in here that you could use for different things and different types of events. This is what the immediate and follow-up survey looked like that I distributed. So you can see the first one is 6 questions, the first one is 5. On the first one, the first 4 are the questions that I was really most interested in. The 5th and 6th question are open-ended questions where students could kind of give some general feedback. But as far as the assessment goes, questions 1 through 4 were the questions that were actually part of the assessment. And with the follow-up instruction survey, questions 1 through 3 were the questions that were part of actually the assessment. So the original assessment plan was that it would take part in two parts. There would be 2 parts of the survey, and it would be the immediate post-survey part 1 and then the follow-up post-survey part 2. So here you can see our criterion of excellence. For the first part was that at least 75 responses will answer agree or strongly agree to questions 1 through 4. So those first 4 questions, not the open-ended questions. The criterion of excellence for the second part was at least 50% of responses will answer yes to survey questions 1 through 3. So again, not the open-ended questions. And students will demonstrate increased knowledge, confidence, application, and awareness of library resources. So that was the overall goal of the instruction. Here are the results from the immediate instruction survey. So we had a total of 84 responses out of 6 classes, and these classes have between sometimes only 10 or less up to 20, usually no more than 18. So we're talking about not really full large classes here, but we had 6 classes respond for 84 survey responses, and this is the percentage of people who agreed or strongly agreed with the questions 1 through 4. So the first one, 96% learned something new to help succeed in class. So that's the little knowledge symbol. If you look here at the chart below, you can see that. 95% felt more confident about completing assignments. That's the confidence. So we liked that confidence because first year instruction for us is really about building confidence in students, letting them know that the library is here, the librarians are here to help them, and we want to be a friendly face for them to come in and reach out to. And building confidence, we like that. So I was really happy with that result. 96% intend to apply what they learned, so that's good. They didn't just sit there and listen to someone talk and, it all went out the window. And then 95% were more aware of resources and services provided. Now, we chose 75% as the criterion of excellence on this one because honestly, we felt like we would do a good job and, students would be positive about this. But we also know that immediate surveys score higher than post surveys, say like the follow-up survey that's going to be 6 weeks later. So we know that the initial survey, we will get higher results than we will on that follow-up survey. And so I was really thrilled with these results. And if we go to the next slide, you're going to see a bit of these open-ended questions here. So this is just a word cloud. Sorry, y'all. I love a good word cloud, right? Like the words pop out at you, and it's just nice. But so this is one of the open-ended questions from that immediate survey. So what did you like most about the session? And I love word clouds because I like for some of the words to pop out at me. Learning, informative. They remembered the databases, search, sources. Statista is actually one of the databases I showed them, and it's usually pretty popular. If any of you have used Statista before, it's pretty fun. I can personally kill a lot of time in Statista. So when we get to the follow-up instruction survey, this is where things kind of changed. The initial instruction for the 6 classes happened in February and early March. And then our spring break was in the middle of March, and we never came back to work. Well, I mean, we were working, but our physical presence changed. We were no longer physically present in the building, and all of our classes moved online, like many of you. And so I worked with the first professor who had 2 classes, and as she was moving her information of her class online, she and I got together and she actually made them do the follow-up instruction survey as an assignment. So it was something that they were required to turn in. So that accounts for our 27 responses. Unfortunately, the professor for the other 4 classes contracted COVID, and so he was unavailable. And so the follow-up survey kind of got half done because he was unable to have his students complete the survey. And so we've got a much smaller set of results here. but they're still valid, right? They still tell us about what the students remembered, what they used, what they retained. And it also kind of tells us that even with such upheaval that the students were going through, even though there was a lot going on, that instruction session registered enough for them to still use that information that they learned. So let's look at the results here. 85% felt that they did better in their classes. Our criterion of excellence was 50%, and I have to tell you, I was really surprised at this number, but really excited about this number because that tells me that every time I go into one of those classes, students are going to feel like they're going to do better in their class. Like, that's amazing. That is so rewarding for me to see that students feel like that is helpful, because sometimes you don't get a lot of feedback from students. Sometimes it's 8 o'clock, people are sleepy, they haven't had their first coffee, and so maybe they're not really engaged or active in the class. Then we have the second one, so you all can see this 38% here sitting out here. 38% used additional library resources. Now, initially, when I saw this number, I was like, oh no, I'm a failure, I'm terrible, right? Because I didn't meet my criterion of excellence at that 50%. And I think that's a knee-jerk reaction that many of us have, right? If we don't meet that goal or we don't meet that outcome or that criterion, we immediately think, oh, we're failures, we did a horrible job. But then I looked at that. 38% used additional library resources. Hey, then I decided I was pretty happy with that number. It didn't meet my criterion of excellence, but when you think about it, I went into that class and they have set assignments and I showed them specific things, right? I showed them specific resources that are going to specifically help them with this class and this assignment. So the fact that 38% of the classes went out on their own and used other library resources that I didn't show in class, I was really surprised by that, but I was also really happy. Who cares if it didn't meet my criterion of excellence? In that session, I wasn't trying to get them to use other resources other than the ones I was showing. I told them they could. We always tell them that they're welcome to use any library resource they want. But the fact that 38% of them then went out and did that, I thought was great. Last, 85% used what they learned to do better in their class. Again, great. I feel wonderful about this. And, it's not just how I feel. Like, I'm the librarian, I'm going in, I'm talking to these students, and I hope that I am creating in them the knowledge and understanding that the library is here to help them. We have resources to help them, and we have people to help them. But it does make you feel really good when you turn around and see that 85% say that what they learned helped them do better in their class. So you contributed to that outcome for them, and I think that's absolutely amazing. Now, really quickly, I'll mention the project outcome does go ahead and calculate all of this for you, and it does show you this note that says because they do round it, percentages may not add up to exactly a 100. But once you have your data and project outcome, it's really easy to go in there and to create these various visuals and for you to see your results. You can also download them all into an Excel file. You can download all the open-ended questions as well and do what you need to do with them. So it's a really easy product to use. And it's free. Free is good. So these are this is the word cloud rather from the follow-up survey. So what did you find most helpful from this session? And I love that the word helped. It's the biggest, brightest word there, right? Because from everything that came out of this assessment, the number one thing that I got was that library instruction helped the students. And instruction, a lot of times, it's really hard for us to determine and calculate and put a number or a statistic on what type of impact we've had on a class or on a student through the library. And this is really great because the first thing you see is helped. It helped. I can't ask for any more than that, right? To have the instruction session help the students. Some takeaways from this is that, assessment is meant to find things that need to be improved on. And a lot of us, when we're doing assessment and things like that, we don't like to be judged. I don't like to be judged. You don't like to be judged. But the whole point is to find things that we can do better, because no one is ever doing anything as best as they can. I mean, we try to, right? But things can always be improved. There is always room for improvement. So don't be afraid of assessment. Don't be afraid of finding something that you're not doing as well as you could be, because that's the point. We want to improve. If we just were awesome at everything all the time, it would be kind of stale and we'd never change anything. So assessment helps us get better, it helps us improve things, and it helps us change and innovate. Another thing to remember is that you don't have to reinvent the wheel, to create a good solid assessment plan and to follow through with it. The project outcome I found to be really easy, to be free, and it was already there for me. I didn't have to sit down and spend all this time coming up with 2 different surveys and determining how, what the answers were going to be, what the Likert scale was going to be, and how I was going to calculate all of this up. It saved me a lot of time, and I was able to quickly implement the assessment plan that I had in mind without all of this ton of prep work on the front end. And then focus on the things that you can do or you can improve, and not on the things you can't, because some things, y'all, are out of our control. A pandemic is out of our control. Having all of our classes move virtually online, there was nothing that we could do about that, right? All we could do was think about how we could continue to serve our patrons and our students. And I think so many libraries found so many great ways to do that. But, I could sit here and say, well, my whole assessment was a failure because I didn't even get half the responses on the follow-up survey because those 4 classes were unable to participate. And I don't choose to see it that way, right? I choose to see it that the students that were able to take that follow-up survey still showed that that library instruction session that they had a positive impact on them. So I'm going to choose to take and look at this survey as a glass half full situation. And, once things get back to normal, this fall semester, y'all, some of us are online, some of us are in person, some of us are hybrid, some of us are in our office sometimes, like I am now, and some of us are still from home most of the time. So things aren't quite normal yet. But in the future, I would like to take and reassess these same Speech 102 classes and see if anything changes. Does that follow-up survey, do those percentages go higher? Do they go lower? What effect has the pandemic had on library instruction? So I'm going to look at it as a future opportunity to compare this data with new data and see what I can take away from that. And finally, things don't always go as planned, and that's okay, right? We plan things. We're librarians. We love to plan. I love to plan. And sometimes we freak out a little bit when it seems like something isn't going to go the way we thought it would, or when something seems to be a failure, like getting less than half of your responses for your second survey. But that's okay. I mean, we live in changing times. We're living in a crazy, crazy world right now. And we just keep moving and we stay positive and don't let the negative things or the things that drastically change something that you've planned, don't let them get to you. Just keep doing what you're doing, and we'll keep being librarians and we'll keep teaching people how to find the information that they need. Now, I just thought it would be nice to have a slide of positivity. So, concentrate on that positive, y'all. This is open-ended responses to the second open-ended question. And this is from the follow-up survey. And these are just some of my favorites that students, responded with. So my absolute favorite would have to be in the middle. You're doing amazing, love. Isn't that great? Like, I love that feedback. That might be my favorite feedback from all time. But what we noticed in the open-ended questions a lot were a lot of students saying, do this for more classes, offer this more often. Let us sign up for this. And that was really surprising in a way because so often we walk into a class and you just see the students going, oh, the librarian is here. And sometimes I've had classes where, unfortunately for the student, they may see me in back-to-back classes because I've left one class and I go to another class and there's that same person sitting there, usually on the front row, so they have to listen to me for 2 classes in a row. But I love this open-ended feedback that we can get from students because sometimes they give us suggestions and they say things that we wouldn't even think was on their radar. But I did think it was so interesting that so many of them thought, hey, you're doing a good job. You all are helpful. And please just do this more. And when someone wants you to do more of what you're already doing, when it's something you enjoy and something that you feel is really important, that's nothing but goodness right here, right? So last, I hope you all enjoyed this presentation. It isn't how I initially intended on presenting it or what I initially pretended or what I initially thought I would be presenting from this assessment plan. But if any of you have questions, if you'd like to know more about how I felt about using project outcome or more about the surveys or the classes or anything of the University of Mississippi Libraries, please feel free to reach out to me. You can email me. My contact information is here. And I'd love to hear from some of you and hear what you thought. Thanks.